We're in Facebook jail right now. Quetzalcoatl, Yaldabaoth. Quetzalcoatl, Yaldabaoth. Yeah, that's a connection right there. They both snake body. Snake body with a lion head. I'm not a linguistic, but I will be if I have to. Quetzalcoatl, Yaldabaoth. Yeah, that's a connection. That's linguistics right there. Yaldabaoth, Quetzalcoatl. If you can't see that, if you don't see the connection, you're blind. You purposely don't want to see it. Indigenous Knowledge and Science class. Welcome to class, y'all. To the Indigenous Knowledge and Science class. Every day on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Indigenous Knowledge and Science class. All day, every day. Taught by yours truly. Hey, get down. Get down. She's trying to come up there so she can jump, slam on my computer. She's been doing that, trying to break my shit. So she'll go up there and she'll jump, slam on my computer, and my screen will turn all green and discolored and shit, y'all. We are a rare haplogroup. Facts. We got haplogroups that originated in the Americas. So Native Americans, specifically indigenous original people, trace their lineage through their mother, the life giver, not through the father. You don't take nothing from your father. My dad was Onondaga and Mohawk. I'm not Onondaga or Mohawk. Yeah, I'm of those people, but I'm not enrolled to that tribe. I'm enrolled Seneca, because that's what my mom was. But my mom, her dad was Onondaga too, but she was Seneca. Is because you go through the mom. Her mom was Seneca. So you see? And then our haplogroups, our maternal haplogroups are A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. Those are haplogroups that originated in the Americas, yo. We'll get something going in a second. Hey, be quiet. Crystal Jesus.
The color blue was never written down.
Weird.
In like all this, like blue was never a word.
Weird.
They didn't have a word for that color?
No.
Okay.
When they would describe like the ocean and stuff like that, they would describe it as like
you guys are whack.
And yeah, and so the
you guys didn't have a word for
if
blue.
You can't connect a word with a color. Can you not see that color? Because your brain, and so they did an experiment.
That's crazy.
They did an experiment in this tribe and somewhere in Africa. It was like the bush people, and they also have never heard the word blue. And so they gave this graph, and it's this graph of like 12 squares, and they're all green, right? And there's one that's like a bluish green, very different. Like all of us would be like, oh yeah, that one's different. And they had these people look at it, and they were staring at it, and it took them so long to figure out which color was different, because they don't know what to look for in the blue. They're like, find the one that's different. It was weird.
Yeah.
And then they showed it. The color blue was never written down.
Weird.
In like all this, like blue was never a word.
Weird.
They didn't have a word for that color?
No.
Okay.
When they would describe like the ocean and stuff like that, they would describe it as like green.
What?
And yeah, and so the theory is if you can't connect a word with a color, can you not see that color? Because your brain, and so they did an experiment.
It's crazy.
They did an experiment in this tribe and somewhere in Africa. It was like the bush people, and they also have never heard the word blue. And so they gave this graph, and it's this graph of like 12 squares, and they're all green, right? And then there's one that's like a bluish green, very different. Like all of us would be like, oh yeah, that one's different. And they had these people look at it, and they were staring at it, and it took them so long to figure out which color was different because they don't know what to look for in
the people in this cabal have used secret societies like the Freemasons in which they guard their secrets through complex rituals in which the person who is an aspirant to that order has to learn how to keep a secret, has to learn secret handshakes, secret passphrases, secret codes. And what that does is it creates a body of people from which you can do recruitment. Because when you recruit from these people, they have now taken a blood oath that if they ever betray the secrets of the order, they will be killed. And when you go up to the 7th degree in Freemasonry, which is called Royal Arch Masonry, you swear that you will do anything within your power to free a fellow Mason from harm's way, even if he has committed acts of murder or treason against his own.
Yo, and then at Disney World,
30th and 31st degree.
At Disney World, they got Club 33. 33 is their number, yo. Come on. Walt Disney froze himself, yo.
They say that the goal of their organization is to crush the head of the serpent of religion. Now, granted, organized religion has caused a lot of problems, but what they really mean is not that all religion should be excluded. It's that Shriners, they want to make it so only their religion exists.
Shriners, they run hospitals and they have clowns come to their hospital, religion,
yo. You will be killed.
It's weird, yo.
So what they've been doing is they've been giving us their religion. They go out there in music videos and movies and video games and television shows, and they're showing us Luciferian symbolism. The people in this cabal have used secret society
marketing. Have you heard the theory that the Trumps are time travelers?
Debbie DeLorean.
This connects to Nikola Tesla.
No way.
Nikola Tesla died, and within his hotel that he had 80 plus trunks of all his patents, his designs for different technologies, all this stuff. Guess who they sent first to go and collect?
Baron Trump is a time traveler too, and he met the ant people that the Hopis speak about.
The stuff.
I don't know.
John G. Trump, Donald Trump's uncle.
What?
Weird.
So the theory is that he took some of these trunks.
Oh no.
Oh no.
But Tesla said that he had figured out how.
There's a theory that says John the disciple, they say he's still alive. How? So they have every single...
If you want to learn more about the most esoteric elite wisdom that some of the wisest people in history have ever studied, then watch the rest of this video because I'm going to detail how you can learn more about stuff like this. So even though a lot of this stuff is very mystical and it's very cool, most of this is actually going to come back to you.
Most of this is indigenous teachings, just so you guys know.
How to use
this is what I've been talking about the past few days.
Your body, or how to...
All Gnosticism is indigenous teachings. So we listen to the Gnosticism creation story. The whole time I'm pointing out different creation stories. Aztec creation story, Haudenosaunee creation story. The twin theme is common throughout the lot. And then Yaldabaoth and Quetzalcoatl. Come on, y'all. Sophia and Sky Woman.
To do things in your physical life, forming good habits that can ultimately raise your
Thank you for the gifts, guys.
Other people are saying.
Sorry, I can't see them when I'm live like this on the studio. When I'm on a studio like this, I can't see it. See, they're taking our teachings now. So our teachings is nature. We are one with nature. Native American this is why hippies gravitate towards our culture and all that, and why they become pretendians. Swear to God, is because even like the pretendians today, they're all hippies. They all wear copper and crystals, and they're all into this stuff like this. That's because this is our culture. It's because it's our culture, yo. Like I say every day, the foundation of modern day science is our teachings, yo. How do we call in? I got a questions, but not on disrespectful tip. You got to come to TikTok. And I just got flagged. Come to TikTok. Everybody come to TikTok. Go to Jooyaih0. JOOYAIH 0.
That shouldn't be here. That's why nobody knows about this place. This is Vilcabamba, the last stronghold of the Inca Empire. If you did learn about it, you probably didn't see that crazy stone. You probably saw this, which is a beautiful mountaintop fort. But what they don't highlight is this, the old stonework and the new stonework. I don't know why it's not addressed more. Machu Picchu. The old work is always better than the new work.
Facts.
Pre-Inca were so good, they could turn rock into silly putty.
Yeah, the further you go back, the more advanced our people were.
And then put block rock silly putty in between the gaps and then put megaliths on top of it and form them all together. The oldest ones are massive and they show the silly putty signs, the same ones that you can find in Egypt. As their style evolves, they get more precise, just like we see in Egypt again. Then, just to mess with you, they put both techniques in these random rocks that you can find all over the landscape, just like in Japan. That is a 9,000-mile coincidence across the largest ocean.
So if you guys would like to call in, come to TikTok and send a request. I believe it's down here. One of these buttons. Maybe over here or over here. I think it's right here. I think there's a call in button right here. So if you would like to call in and debate or whatever. What does the book say about blacks in the 1700s? About your tribe and blacks. What does the book say about your tribe and blacks? About the Seneca and blacks? You guys were down south, bro. You guys weren't in New York like that, yo. You guys weren't really on the frontier either. Like, you guys existed, but not like that. You guys didn't even really come up here till the 1920s, dude. Buffalo, New York, Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit. It's called the Great Migration. You guys came from, like, South Carolina, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Mississippi. So, that's called the Great Migration. It happened here in Buffalo, too. Like, y'all came up here in the 1920s. No TikTok account? Well, that's the only way you can call in. Sorry.
On Earth. Luckily, the Spanish put a church over their last remnants of it after they realized that they couldn't burn stones like they did.
If you got YouTube, you might as well get TikTok.
And now we can gaze upon them.
YouTube is lit,
forever.
Though.
After they killed Tupac, Vilcabamba was lost to history, then rediscovered in 1911.
Yeah, the real Tupac. After they killed the real Tupac.
That's probably why you haven't heard of it. But thanks to the internet, sites like this are popping up every day. It's a great time to remember your roots.
Exactly. Yo, that kid knows a lot.
Nobody told me.
That's your culture.
Oh, well, and now...
The first stage with imagination is that they tell you guns kill people, therefore take away the guns. Then they create a fake event, a mass shooting, which is staged. They already have the emergency crews on hand. They already have the whole thing lined up. The cover-up is already in place. They manage the event. They control the media. They black out people's cell phones. People don't understand why they're not getting a signal. It's an EMP block. This is the kind of stuff they actually do. So nobody can be taking pictures and filming it while it's happening. Then the event happens and everybody's traumatized. And then they release the coded phrase. They say, guns are the problem. Guns are the reason why these people died. Therefore, we need to take away the guns. And then everybody says, oh, yes, thank God. Take away all the guns. This will never happen again. Every single fascist overthrow of a country in history started with some form of confiscation of the tools that the people had to protect themselves. We do expect there's going to be a blackout. We do expect that all the power is going to go off for a while.
This is why he went missing.
During the time that the power goes out, there very likely will be military operations taking place in all of the major American cities. Those operations will most likely be occurring in places where
astronomy and astrology were one combined science. And the reason why astronomy was important is because the planets were thought to be fueled by a living entity, a living spiritual life force. And that's why the Chaldeans and then the Greeks and then the Romans all put a great amount of emphasis on combining astronomy and astrology. And we see that at Dendera. The ceiling of Dendera is an ancient zodiac, and here we see on the altar stones and the gravestones of the great and the good of the Roman Empire, the Roman rulers in the Mediterranean more than 2,000 years ago, we see that they put spinning galaxy symbols on all of these stones, where you've got the body of a young child, but with the face of somebody who's in their 50s or their 60s. And this is very, very typical of the types of gods that existed before we had, Christianity. The only other big major religion at that time in the Mediterranean was Judaism.
This is the key to understanding everything that happens electrically in this universe, because it's an electric universe. Here it is. The 1 becomes the 2, becomes the 3, becomes the 4 elements, becomes the 7 planets, and the 7 chakras that are in there, becomes the 12. And that's why Jesus has 12 apostles. The 12 tribes of Israel. We're all the 12 tribes of Israel. Oh, this is it. This is Benjamin and Naphtali and Asher and Dan and Gad. We are the Israelites. These are the 12 tribes of Israel. Israel is the sun. Isis, Ra, and El is this wheel. And they hide that. And this is the disgrace of the churches. And
did you hear that? Your 12 tribes of Israel are the planets. The fuck?
And this guy, when he busted them 170 years ago,
or your constellations,
30 years after him came
your signs, star signs. That's your 12 tribes of Israel.
in Kersey Graves, and he revealed to the world in this book that the 16 crucified saviors that are to be found all over the planet are one and the same person.
Everybody come back.
It's the Son. And in his address to the clergy, you want to read that?
Yeah, and we got
5
flagged
pages
on,
where it says, clergy types, your business.
TikTok right away.
It's over. It's over. He said that 150 years ago. He gave notice to them back then. Why are we still here? And the churches have so much power? Because this is the power of the illusion.
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure. This is from thousands and thousands of years ago. A lot of it was covered over with sand. Hawara? Is that where it was? The way Herodotus described it, he said they were far superior and more impressive than the pyramids of Giza. Underground. And there had been some explorers a long time ago that went there and saw some of what was in there. But the way Herodotus described it, it's just absolutely fantastic. So then they started using ground-penetrating radar. And one of the things that they found was there's a massive atrium. There is a 40-meter-long metallic object that is inside this atrium. 40 meters of some unknown metal.
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure. This is from thousands and thousands of years ago. A lot of it was covered over with sand.
Well, that's good,
He doesn't.
Very evil people are running the planet and want to kill you. And they're trying to do that, and they're aggressively pursuing this goal right now. There are 2 lines of reality in the world. In one reality, you are believing everything that they tell you, and you can't understand why things are so crazy. Those people who want to live in that denial, they are being battered by experience, they are being battered by information, they are being battered by consciousness, and they are seeing all of these things come in to their reality, whether they like it or not. Those of us in the truth community say we don't understand why people can't conceptualize such simple things. This is simple information. Why can't you understand something that's so easy? Please try to have more compassion for these people who are suffering and understand that it has nothing to do with the simplicity of the concept. The concept is very simple. Very evil people are running the planet and want to kill you. And they're trying to do that, and they're aggressively pursuing this goal right now.
This is what Charles Manson said during an interview while serving life in prison for the brutal murder of Sharon Tate.
I wouldn't do anything that I felt guilty about. There's no need to feel guilty. I haven't done anything I'm ashamed of. Maybe I should have killed 400 or 500 people, then I would have felt better. Then when I felt like I really offered society something. You know, if I wanted to kill somebody, I'd take this book and beat you to death with it, and I wouldn't
we come up with this one.
There's a basic New World Order, an Illuminati, if you will, which is primarily run by the Rothschild family. The Rothschilds financed Stalin and the takeover of Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution.
Also, they bought the land in Israel, and they funded Israel as a country. Just so you know.
1917, they have financed the French Revolution, they financed World War II, they financed Hitler, and they were financing the U.S. So they believe in order out of chaos. You fund both sides of a war, and whichever side wins, you got their vote. Because you're their paymaster. You've given them their money, you control their financial supply, which means you can control the government. Okay?
Yeah, they just print out their own money. It's their money.
And you profit no matter what.
Like, once you guys realize that it's not fair, yo. Once you realize that they're just regular people too, that's what you guys gotta understand, yo. We all bleed red, and so do these ones. Allegedly. Once you guys realize that it could be you where they're at, and that they're just like you, it'll hit harder, yo. Because I feel like a lot of y'all think that these people are untouchable and not even real, yo. Like, these are regular ass people ruling the world, yo. Regular ass people. Like,
and also what happens is that the war stimulates the economy, so you get much more infrastructure and much more buildings coming out of it. That's why, for example, Ford Motor Company was building tank plants in Germany, which is why Hitler's Wehrmacht had the tanks. It was from Ford. When American bombers bombed Ford's tank plants in Germany, Ford personally repaid Hitler so he could rebuild the tank plants faster. Boeing actually was shipping, this has been documented,
how many of y'all already knew this?
Passenger airliners to South America, which were then sent to Africa, where they ripped the seats out and turned them into Hitler's bomber fleet. That was Boeing. These are American corporations.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. When you really learn from people that are going missing, this guy's fucking missing right now. They don't know what happened to him. Maybe he joined the witness protection program, right? Maybe he's scared, but he's fucking missing, yo. Yeah, the guy in the blue shirt is missing right now. He's a missing person. And listen what he's talking about. Yeah, and I just got
the whole
flagged.
idea of these big wars is a joke. There's a basic New World Order, an Illuminati, if you're still paying $20 a month.
Because they don't want anyone to know that it's glitter. These 10 words kicked off one of the biggest internet conspiracies of all time.
Can you tell me what your biggest buyer is?
No, I absolutely know that I can't.
Yo, it looks Mayan right off the rip. There's a connection. They just speak a different tongue, y'all.
I was talking to my friend.
Scientists have sequenced the DNA of the coyote that ended up on Alcatraz Island earlier this year, and it has made this story even more interesting. It was originally hypothesized that the coyote had left San Francisco and swam.
The reason there is no slavery. A man who constantly.
Egyptian. Why do we say that, the children of Israel? Why do we say that, children of Israel, when our children are called kids? Kids are baby goats.
Yep.
You have kids. They're called the children of Israel. We have kids. In the Hebrew, the rabbis blessed the congregation, which is called the benediction symbol. Again, the black robe for the planet Saturn and Yahweh connected to the volcano god Vulcan. This is why.
The three-fingered, yo. Three-finger is showing up all over the place, especially in South America, yo. That's why natives sometimes have to specify. When they're talking about mankind, they'll say 5-finger. 2-legged. 4-legged. 6-finger. Straight up.
Mr.
Not
Spock
even just South America, up here.
is a Vulcan. It's all Jewish religion, Hollywood, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And the Gentiles just love it. Can't get enough of Hollywood. That's why God has withheld his protection from our nation.
Hell may be just the sun, actually. And that's why they say don't go towards the light, right? And you're going to have to go... Most of the ancient cultures say there's about 7 to 13 heavens. And you got to go through each one and face the god of each one, yo. Almost like fucking Mortal Kombat, yo. When you're going up the tower, yo. It's realms and layers, yo. Mayans, Hindus, Greeks, Romans, Egyptians. There's heavens. Sky Woman fell from the highest heaven. That's home for us. Right? Some say it's Pleiades. Some say it's Venus.
This is why our country is now in the darkest period as has ever been, because we have given ourselves over to ignorance, stupidity, ill-informed religious philosophies, and have not come before God with a trite heart and wanting to know the full truth. Why do we say that? The children are
considering college.
So this is the recreation of what it must have looked like. So look how far down. Look how scary that is. Brutal. Look how scary that is. 3,008.
Next, I'm going to move. Most people don't know this, but modern day Iraq.
There's a lot of weirdness in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Is there any references to Anunnaki-type characters, the Nephilim, or anything like that in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
They show up everywhere. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Enuma Elish, in the Epic of Atrahasis. Of course, even in the Bible, they're known as the Anak. We were grass.
Dude, Billy Carson's a fucking pretendian. He wants to say Olmecs were African. Nah, yo, they were Polynesian, if anything. That's why they mixed in. They left people there, too. That's why the people that lived there look like them, too. But those helmets that they're wearing, those are Polynesian fucking helmets, yo. Their features are, and those are all on the west coast of Mexico down there. Makes more sense that they would be Polynesian.
Toppers in their eyesight, it says in the biblical text. No matter where you go in any culture, you're going to...
And even one of them had an elongated head, too. Real big forehead.
Discover that these beings, in some way, shape, or form, engaged mankind, brought knowledge, teaching, building techniques.
And Native Americans have this story of blue-eyed, green-eyed beings that came from the stars and taught knowledge and teachings, mathematics, star knowledge. Straight up. That came down from the stars that say they had blue eyes and shit. And that's what the Anunnaki was. Anunnaki was a fair-skinned group of people with blue eyes and their hairy beards. And they were here to look for gold. Isn't it funny? Because that's what everybody's looking for now. It's like they put that gene in the humans to... They said they created the Homo sapien to mine gold for their planet to be the slave race. So they put worship gene in it, in the Homo sapien.
Esoteric wisdom, alchemy, all these things came from these people.
There's a lot of weirdness in the Dead Sea.
Podcasting shouldn't...
Two fines over here.
If you start doing a deep...
And on today's up.
Who is the Pope? He is the Emperor of Rome. Rome never died, never faded away. It became the Vatican. What is the Vatican? It is the priesthood of all of the old pagan religions of Rome. Built upon the deception that they are Christian. Can man change the orders of God? Can man elevate himself above God? No. Then why did the Pope change the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, the venerable day of the worship of the sun Osiris?
Yeah, so Saturday is the day that the Jews do it, though. Because they're straight up. So the people at the tippy top, the 1%, the elites, they see that people throughout time, slavery, they prayed to God if that it got to save them. God never saved them, right? They saw people in war pray to God to save them. God never saved them. They saw the Jews pray to God to save them, or saw whoever, right? The elites, they saw them do that throughout time. They see people pray to God and God doesn't save them. So in their mind, they started praying to the opposite of that God, which was who? The devil. That's how their brain works. And they believe it works for them. They got magic that they've taken from different cultures that they've colonized, right? They took our most sacred ceremonies and then brainwashed our elders in the residential schools to believe in something else, that they're primitive and that we needed to learn their ways. And then now we look back, it was like we were more advanced than them, and they tricked us and indoctrinated us to believe in something else. And we lost our knowledge. But the stuff that we held on to and we practice in secret, it's powerful stuff. It's the most powerful stuff we got. That's why we gatekeep it, and that's why it's so sacred.
Why in the outer courtyard of the Vatican is there a temple of the sun, an obelisk, and a reflecting pool?
One in Buffalo.
Built as a fountain around the base of the obelisk. Because what we're talking about in Dealey Plaza and in Washington, D.C. exists also in the Vatican.
There's an Egyptian one in
And I'm
Buffalo,
not trying
too.
to insult Catholics, I'm just trying to tell you the truth.
Right in front of
Who is
City
the
Hall.
Pope?
Right in front of City Hall.
Pringles
that got
aren't
Mohawk written all
potatoes.
over it, too.
Well, that's the Sumerian Kings list located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. I was there myself in person to check out this stonework, and it's an incredible tablet that talks about the reigns of kings.
Yeah.
Some kings ruled for 28,800 years, 14,000 years. I mean, 20,000. If the numbers are insane.
These are not Egyptian? This is
no, not Egyptian. These are Anunnaki. This is pre-flood. This is antediluvial. And then when the flood comes, it talks about, and then this flood swept over the land.
So what's good, yo? I just had, sorry, some things you can't put on camera, but I got flagged anyway. It's restricted in the search results for the next 10 minutes because your live does not comply with the For You eligibility standards reason. Yeah, so the stuff that the information it says may cause moderate harm. So this is life-changing knowledge.
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure. Before the flood came, the Bible says God created the earth to be inhabited. Today, 3% of the world is habitable. 71% is underwater. 10% is under deserts. 10% is under ice caps. Then there's the mountain ranges and stuff. Before the flood, it was habitable. There were seas, but no oceans. Most of the water was stored under the crust of the earth. The Bible says the fountains of the deep broke open. It says he created the earth upon the waters. It also says he created water above the firmament. The firmament, it says, is where the birds fly. That's our atmosphere. There was a layer of water. The Jews have always taught it was a 3-finger thick layer of ice, completely surrounding the world like a crystal ball. This crystal canopy above the atmosphere, as it was 10 miles up. The air today goes out about 50 miles. See, it says in 2 Peter 3, the scoffers at the end of time would be ignorant of how God made the earth and the heavens, and how the earth was out of the water and in the water. Then it says they're also ignorant of the flood. The world was destroyed by that water.
You want to hear something really fast?
So did you guys hear the end of the world prophecies that the Muslims say? They say that in the Middle East, the end times, that the shepherds will build buildings that touch the sky, and they'll have contests who can build the highest building, and that will be the end times. That's what they say in Islam. That's a sign of the end times in Islam, that the shepherds in the Middle East will start building towers as a contest who can touch the skies, the heavens. And they've already done that. The tallest building in the world is in Dubai. and they're still having contests over there.
It is against the law. The Vikings launched themselves in whatever direction their country is facing. So there's a Viking named Rurik who goes east, manages to set up an encampment on this lake called Staraya Ladaga,
which is a launch pad to both the Volga River and the Dnieper River.
The reason why you have 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is because you have 12 apostles. The 12
4 sky dwellers. 4 winds.
Apostles represent, as I said, the 12 signs of the zodiac, or the 12 months of the year. This is why you had 12 jurors in a jury system. The 12 jurors help.
But that's wrong. It's 13 moons. You got 13 moons on its back on the back of your turtle shell. He's going off the wrong thing. They even have their own thing. It's not 12 things. They got a 13th one. It's called Ophiuchus.
God's Son to bring the truth to light with the light of truth. The 12 brothers.
You see what I mean? So all their teachings, that with that wheel right there, it's got 12 on it. And ours, we go by 13 moons. That's more original than that. And they've made wheels and graphs and stuff out of that, and their stuff don't work. Their prophets don't prophesize anything that happened. Only ours do. It's because they started writing everything down. That's how. They're writing it down wrong.
12 tribes of Israel.
They're writing it down wrong so they don't have a reason to remember it or memorize it. So it doesn't mean that much to them. Me learning how to pray and give thanks in my language, I had to memorize it. It's not something I can just keep in my phone. I thought that was good enough just to keep the gononyok in my phone. That's not good enough. I had to learn it and learn how to say it.
The 12 symbols on the breastplate of the high priest, the 12 represented the 12 signs of the zodiac. That's why Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, spring, summer, autumn, winter. We're talking about astrological symbolism. You got many, many books that could be put into the Bible, but Tertullian said you only have 4, so pick 4. And the reason why Tertullian said, because the 4 books of the Bible, the 4 books of the Gospel will represent the 4 seasons of the year. This is why when Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper,
we're just looking at this. He's inside of a Mayan or Egyptian or Cambodian or Indian or Indonesian pyramid.
The Last Supper,
because he's elevated too. Look at the hills.
Which shows Jesus sitting in the middle, and you will see 3 the apostles talking to each other. 3 apostles talking to each other. 3 group and 3 group. They're groups in threes. 4 groups, 2 on each side of Jesus. Yeah, spring, summer, autumn, winter. So what I'm saying is that Jesus is a metaphor, a symbolic metaphor for spiritual, intellectual enlightenment. The reason why you have 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke.
If you're struggling.
If there was a... So people ask me all the time about Gnosticism and what books to read, and I always direct them to the Nag Hammadi library. And if...
Why was the Apostle Paul...
Do I believe? We have a lot of names like that, meaning like you could even say Isha Nisha.
Why did Judas go out and kiss Jesus? The scripture, you know how in the scripture talks about Judas went out and kissed Jesus? And most people think Judas went out and kissed Jesus to identify. It doesn't say that. It says he went out to kiss Jesus to betray him, not identify. What do you mean betray? That's interesting. Because even the mafia today, when they're going to kill you, they give you the kiss of death. They've kissed you off. Why? Because in the old ancient world, when a scorpion bites you, the scorpions in the Middle East have 2 stingers, one on top of the other. And when they bite you, they leave a cut in your skin that looks just like a human lips, looks just like lips. And consequently, the ancient people said that you just got the kiss of death. He just kissed you off, okay? And consequently, that's what Judas was doing, giving him the kiss of death. Why? It has to do with astrotheology. Very interesting stuff. Why did Judas...
According to the fathers of the church, at least the one...
Did you know the oldest Bible in the world has 8...
Christianity is the only religion in the world where a man's God comes and lives inside of him.
Probably one of the most important influences on Judaism in the world today is Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism comes from Iraq. Iraq is the home of Zoroastrianism, and Zoroastrianism dominates Judaism. Almost all the teachings in Judaism come from Zoroastrianism in Iraq. I think it's awful interesting that today Iraq is now being plundered under. I wonder why. All of the teachings in Judaism can be traced back to Iraq. That's very interesting in my opinion. In the King's Old English, J-E-W was spelled, Jew was spelled I-U. And incidentally, pater. This is another interesting word, pater, P-A-T-E-R. Pater is an old Phoenician name for our word for God, or for Father, for the Father God, pater. I-U, and Jew, and pater, Father God. You put the two together, it becomes I-U pater, I-U pater. And I's and J's are interchangeables, so you can make it J-U pater, or Jupater. And this is where the word Jupiter comes from the combining of different words in the ancient language.
Damn, I like
here's another one.
Guy,
they think that there's a second Sphinx in Egypt, so they've done scans of this area where a second Sphinx would be, and there's something under the sand that's the size of a Sphinx. It's in the same area, and so there's one exactly opposite of it. See, that's a scan. It said, scans hinting at complex megastructure beneath the Giza Plateau. Satellite images of the Giza Plateau reportedly captured this dune. A signal processing researcher claims measures approximately 108 feet tall. The first Sphinx sits slightly below the surrounding surface in a shallow depression, so it's quite possible the second Sphinx could be hidden beneath this higher mound. So it's in the right position where a second Sphinx would be. Oh, here's another one. They think that they're...
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure.
The Aztecs were not from Mesoamerica. All of the cultures of the Valley of Mexico are, you can never say they're peaceful, right? So they're all pushing, they're pushing the Aztecs out. We don't want your kind here. You know, you guys are too vicious, you're too savage, you're too barbarian.
This is the thing. This is what I learned. I learned that the Mayans and Aztecs were brothers, right? That the Mayans also came from the middle of the earth. And there was 7 clans, and the Aztecs were one of the last clans that came to the surface, and they came from Atlantis, allegedly, right? Their roots, they lived on Atlantis, and when they came to Mesoamerica, they were nomads. So that's what I learned.
So one of the kingdoms here decides, well, you know what? We can use these guys. They're kind of like savage, barbaric people, but I think we can find a use for them. So they call the Aztecs in, and this is the kingdom of Calhuacan. And so they're living in the Mexican Valley amongst all these other pre-Aztec cultures. And they eventually tell the Aztec, we're going to give you a place to live that you can settle on.
We're
and
more
in
of a builder
return,
Mason
you're going
race.
to unite as an army.
We taught the Masons. That's why some of the first Native Americans that became Freemasons were Iroquois, because we're builders of the Longhouse. We're also Skywalkers that built all the cities in the Northeast, too. All the star forts were built by Iroquois-speaking people. So the star forts we're descendants of the Adena and Hopewell culture. Also, we're like the Tartarians, bro. We're related to the Mayans. They had builder gods. Mayan is actually a Hindu god. His name is Maya, and he's a architect god that builds pyramids.
And you'll come whenever we call on you. They give the Aztecs a
and
little...
that's the god that came from the east that the Mayans say came and taught them how to build pyramids.
...of land that they can live on. And it's this little rocky outcropping out in the middle of Lake Tenochtitlan.
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure.
Look at this map of the North Sea between...
And then people think they find Hebrew, but it's Sanskrit. It's Sanskrit. It's Hindu. You got more of a connection to the Hindus than you would the lost tribes. Sorry.
Britain and Europe. Today, it is just
If
cold,
you're from
empty...
Mexico, yeah. Mayans got ties to Hinduism. It's actually, they got ties to us. It's the other way around. They got ties to us. They all got ties to us. Like, the red man is the original man, and then everybody else came from that. They got it backwards. That's why they can't, that's why things are the way they are. That's why they've enslaved us on our own land. That reservation is a prisoner of war camp, yo. We're prisoners of war. The war is not over. We're in spiritual warfare now. They've enslaved us on our own land. We speak their languages. All that, yo. That's why learning your roots and tapping in, reconnecting, everybody's reconnecting, right? Even if you grow up on the res, and in your culture, you're still reconnecting. It's because we're not living how our ancestors were living. Very few of us are living like that. Very few. The way you're supposed to be. People say, oh, you're not following the Great Law. You're not Gaius Agoa. Oh, you're not following Handsome Lake. Oh, you're not a believer or whatever. It's like, neither are you. Nobody's perfect. But yeah, we gotta decolonize, yo. Gotta decolonize.
Water.
Marketing.
Get another one.
Most people think...
A lot of people think that Mars was already colonized at one point in time. The life already existed on Mars like many millions of years ago. There's evidence of structures on Mars that's really weird stuff. Have you ever seen the square that they found on Mars?
No.
One of the things that they're finding with scans of Mars, there's like geometric patterns and structures and right angles that shouldn't exist. Like weird stuff.
That couldn't be naturally.
No, way weirder. Some enormous structure.
That's crazy.
There's a lot of weird stuff there. There's also like ancient civilizations that have these myths of us existing somewhere else and coming here. A lot of people think that.
Don't let your vacation rental end.
Thailand shut down.
This is weird. Solomon's Temple. So
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure.
The very first major community in North America is in the most unlikely place. It's in northern Louisiana. There is a pyramid, a big one, at a site called Poverty Point.
So the only thing I don't like about that guy is that guy thinks he knows what he's talking about. Bro, you just started researching our fucking shit. Probably in college or something. You got people that literally grew up in their culture on the res. Native Americans are the only people that should speak and teach their culture. Nobody else. If you're not Native American and part of a tribe or grew up on the res, you can't teach the culture. You shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. That's just a rule, yo. Imagine if I got on here and started teaching black history and changing it. Right? Or white history and changing it. People do that to native history all the fucking time. Every fucking day. They speak for us when they're not even us. Like, who the fuck are you? Who said you could teach our history and as if it's a fact and that it's the way you said it? Right? Who gave you the pass?
That is 3,500 years old. Biggest of the Mississippian cities is called Cahokia, and it was huge. It had a population of 20,000 people and pyramids all over the place, a huge palisade wall around it. Cahokia was the big first city, but then it spread from the Mississippi all the way to the Atlantic. There were hundreds and hundreds of these big cities that had, 5,000 to 10,000 people each.
You want to hear something really fascinating?
There is...
I think that this is the most powerful thing that an individual can do,
is talk to the creator, the divine spirit in the universe, ask for direction, ask, what am I supposed to know? What am I supposed to do? How can I protect myself and my loved ones? Show me what I am to know. Show me what I am to do. And I will listen. I will do whatever it is, no matter how wrong.
The king of Jerusalem founded an order of knights. Shortly after he was crowned, called the Knights Templar. Their first task was to explore the caverns and tunnels below the Temple Mount and find whatever relics of the past that they could find. They became the richest order in the world. They became the first international bankers. They were, to my knowledge, the first communist. Actually, that's not true because the Gnostics were the first communists. But the Knights Templar became the second large group of
And you know what they even say? You know, that's so weird. That's the connection that I'm talking about. So now that I'm telling y'all that in Gnosticism, you can hear Haudenosaunee, Aztec, Mayan teachings in it and stories, right? A lot. Sophia being a fallen angel that fell from, not a fallen angel, but she fell from the highest heaven. She was a god that fell from the highest heaven. Sounds like called the Pleroma. Right? That's Skyworld. The Pleroma is Skyworld. Sophia is Skywoman. Right? She birthed the Demiurge, and he has two names, Yaldabaoth. Right? He's got two names because the twins. There's just too many connections. But, hold on, let me see, what did he say?
The king of Jerusalem founded an order of knights. Shortly after he was crowned, called the Knights Templar. Their first task was to explore the caverns and tunnels below the Temple Mount and find whatever relics of the past that they could find. They became the richest order in the world. They became the first international bankers. They were, to my knowledge, the first communist.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's not true because the Gnostics.
That's where I was going with that. So, Karl Marx wrote the Manifesto to Communism. They say he came up with communism. But actually, it was the Haudenosaunee that influenced Karl Marx. Karl Marx wrote about this in his manifesto, how the Haudenosaunee was considered primitive communism. But they also say we have the world's oldest constitutional democratic republic, and that's where the 13 colonies got their constitution from, was my people. They told our ancestors that they're making a union like ours because they admired how our tribal council was more organized than a British parliament. And we had a separation of powers and checks and balances, elder brothers, little brothers, and there was 50 sachems, and it's kind of like you got Congress, you got 50 states now, but then you had 50 sachems, right? So they copied a lot, actually. And then the Black Snake with the 8 colonies on it at the time, before it was the 13 colonies, they just had 8 because they considered New England one colony, right? So it was a black snake. Iroquois means the black snake, right? So that's what they're doing, copying us again right there. But Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, they were influenced by that. So was Karl Marx, that
the first communists.
The communism.
But the Knights Templar became the second large group of the communistic order that existed.
The founder of Mormonism. And the Mormon Church of Latter-day Saints is the United States Vatican. That's the Vatican of the United States. And it's the world's richest religion. And their whole book and Bible and all that, and their whole religion is based off of what a Seneca elder told Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith learned this language and all those stories from our people. followers and disciples of Skanyadayo, actually. And I got a whole thing on it, too. A whole series on it. You got to watch it. It's called Seneca Tablets on YouTube.
Their symbol is two knights riding on one horse. When they joined the order, they had to give up all their worldly possessions, goods, money, clothes, property, everything, to the order. And they were only given according to their need in the position that they were assigned to perform by.
I do post videos on my YouTube. That's where I get paid. Is on YouTube.
The order. What is that? Communism. They didn't own anything. They didn't have anything. They were never given anything unless they absolutely needed it to do whatever job they were assigned. The king of Jerusalem.
You want to hear something really fascinating? Sure. You've got Tesla, who gets funded by JP Morgan to create wireless technology, but Tesla gets a little ambitious and says, I'm going to do wireless communication, but I'm going to take your $150,000. I'm going to do wireless energy, and we'll do free energy around the world. And Morgan's like, how do you put a meter on that? Tesla's like, what do you mean? This propel mankind forward. Morgan pulls his funding, tells everyone in the investment class, this guy's a kook, and if you invest with him, you don't do business with me. A few years later, Wardenclyffe Tower gets torn down. Tesla dies in poverty. And where are those 20 boxes? And why was the government so quick to respond to that crime scene?
Yeah, they showed up at that guy's house quick.
Uncle John Trump there was in charge of that.
Donald Trump's uncle reviewed Tesla's death ray, secrets, and found mysterious royal letters.
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure.
I think they're the most alien creature.
In Hindu mythology, Nandi is more than just a bull. He is the devoted guardian and mount of Lord Shiva, the god of destruction. Born from the union of sage Shilada's devotion and divine blessings, Nandi earned his place as the gatekeeper of Kailasa, Shiva's celestial abode.
Another gatekeeper, another doorkeeper. You see the similarities? Seneca is western door, Mohawk's eastern door. We're both doorkeepers, and we even got songs like that too. Like I'm saying, there's a Stargate on each continent.
Loyal and powerful, Nandi stands watch at Shiva temples, symbolizing strength, faith, and protection.
And it's what
devotees
Bigfoot
whisper
protects
prayers
too.
into Nandi's ear, believing he will carry their messages to Shiva himself. Nandi's legend is a story of unwavering loyalty and safety.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
Pull that video up, because it's one of my favorites.
When you look at the legend of Noah's Ark and the flood, I'm not suggesting that there was a flood that covered every mountain on Earth, and nor am I suggesting that there was a boat that housed every species of animal on Earth. However, if Noah's Ark existed, many believe that it was crashed onto Mount Ararat, which is also in Turkey. And something fascinating is that in the Bible, in Genesis 8:20, is that he was said to have constructed an altar to the Lord where he sacrificed some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird. Göbekli Tepe is in Turkey, and every single one of those pillars annotates animals. And some have suggested that it could be Noah's altar. That could be one reason why they wouldn't want to excavate it, is because Turkey is an Islamic country. If there was some Christian religious belief that was corroborated, they might not want that to happen.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
Pull that video.
Tired of endless security alerts?
When the Aztecs were conquered by the Spaniards, according to the Apache, a group of Aztecs moved north and entered into Apacheria and tried to settle there, and the Apaches fought them and defeated them and drove them off. And that may or may not have happened, but when you think about what it must have been like for the Apache as they're fighting the Aztecs, to be told probably by the Aztecs, you should see what just destroyed us. Because everybody knew of the Aztecs. The trade routes that existed in North America stretched from Central America all the way into Wyoming.
That's all the highways.
In other words, it wasn't that these different Native American nations had no contact with each other. When the Aztecs showed up, the Apaches were probably thinking, oh, I think I know who these guys are. Why are they here? we better fight them. When the Aztecs were conquered by...
Listen to this. The book of Adam and Eve. In this book, it talks about Adam basically right after he was kicked out of Eden. It talks about the death of like Abel, stuff that you never really have thought about, but like Adam and Eve never experienced death before. They're basically sitting by Abel for like 10 days being like, wake up. And they're like, he's not waking up. Like, what's going
that's
on?
That's awful.
Yeah. Because they didn't know what death was. Basically, they're saying that he lived in complete sorrow and repentance. When it says that he was naked before, the story describes it as like he basically had a heavenly body. As soon as that disappeared, he was in fact naked. He had an earthly body that could now like feel pain and like sorrow and all this stuff. Basically came to where he was about to die. He sent his son Seth to the gates of Eden to ask for the oil of mercy from the tree of life so that he can be healed. But the angel standing at the Garden of Eden told Seth, this oil will not be given until the Son of God comes in the future. Listen.
Yo, and that's why they call Jesus the anointed one. Because you anoint oil on you. And that, yeah, yo.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from...
You want to hear something really fascinating?
Sure. In the book of Daniel, the king had a dream about 70 weeks are appointed to your people. And he said each week represents a group of 7 years. So 77s is 490 years. And he said, Daniel, when they give the command to build the temple, rebuild the temple, you start the clock. 483 years later, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. They proclaimed him king, laid down their garments, hail King Jesus. 3 days later, they crucified him. God said, oh, you reject the Messiah? I'm going to break you off and put you over here. I'm going to graft in the wild olive branch, the Gentiles. I'll see if I can get some fruit off of them. So we're now living in what's called the age of the Gentile. But the Jews are still God's people. So there's still 1 week left. And
let's see what we got. Abraxas, that sounds cool.
But tonight we are talking about the myth of the mound builders. And this is a fun and an interesting topic that used to be something.
David, why was the God of the Bible so evil? And let me rephrase that. I can't say evil, but so aggressively mean about things.
Specifically, you would be referring to Yahweh in the Old Testament.
Right.
And this is an area where the Law of One goes into detail about it in saying that Moshe, or Moses, was originally in contact with a positive entity, but because he was doing psychic parlor tricks and having people say, hey, man, take your staff and turn it into a snake, and he said, sure, check it out, that he ultimately lost his positivity from that, which, again, is contentious. It's a very contentious subject, but this is what the Law of One says, that the negative Yahweh was able to, it wasn't actually named Yahweh at all. It took that name, and that's the angry God of the Old Testament. The angry God of the Old Testament is a Draco. And so you're going to see all of this Draco type of stuff that it's saying and doing, like I will smite thy firstborn, and I will bathe you in blood, and all this kind of crazy stuff.
Isn't a Draco?
But look at the faces on the on his throne, y'all. It looks like Indian faces, y'all. Does it not? Hold on. Does it not, though? Hold on. Those look like Indian faces, yo. Right next to his head. They look like Mayan. The one on the left definitely look Mayan. Kind of look like a false face, too, almost.
A reptilian?
Yes.
And didn't they also confuse the Draco as the devil?
Yes. I mean, the Draco live in underground bases. They have vertical slit pupils and reptilian skin, and Christians have been saying that Satan lives in hell and hell is underground. And so there is some kind of weird,
That's amazing,
subconscious telepathic thing where we're tapping into something that's true.
You know, as the Bible talks about good and evil, they talk.
Yo, and right now, the energy is so high, yo. Like, lately, yeah, yo, I can fucking... weird ass shit happens to me all the time. Sometimes I want to think that there's a logical explanation for it, like it's some type of electronic harassment and technology, frequency and voice to skull technology or MK Ultra. I want to believe it's that, but a part of me thinks it's something else too.
About the fallen angels and such. Do you think that really happened, or were we talking about extraterrestrials?
The aliens
fallen
are
angels
the
are
demons and
extraterrestrials,
angels.
as far as what these government officials are telling me.
Yeah.
And, they might have their own agenda. They might not be entirely truthful, but I tried to take their words and put them to task, and there's a lot of evidence that there was an extraterrestrial civilization here on Earth of refugees that did in fact crash land and had these elongated skulls, 300 IQ, larger brains, that they took over various...
South America. And this is what you got in you as a Native American. That's why your skull is different. They say if your bones are different, you're a different species. That's why Native Americans have extraterrestrial DNA. That's why people think Egypt and the Native Americans are connected. Yeah, definitely. Egypt was an Atlantean colony. The Aztecs came from Atlantis too. That's the connection. Not only to them, to anywhere where there's pyramids. And I know I sound fucking like a pretendian now, but yeah, pyramids are the most pyramids and mounds are here in the Americas. Life started here. All those people over there in Asia, those are us. They come from us. Those are Asians are just Native Americans that walked out of the Americas. Egypt was an Atlantean colony that came from Atlantis here in the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Aztecs also came from there, and they came out the middle of the earth. They were some of the last ones to come to the surface, actually.
Continents that they landed on, all over.
Not one made by y'all. Listen. Oh my God, we're getting flagged again, y'all. That's crazy, yo.
The planet and formed kingships and royal bloodlines, and that, in fact, some of them are still here, and apparently they exist in certain places.
And that's why, if you look at the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and their head shape, they got real long head like our heads, right? They got real long face like us. Hey! Jeez. They got real long shape head like us. Yo, I just showed you right here. They got real long shape head like us, yo.
Where they wear these elongated hats, certain cities or cities within nations.
And especially the Mayans.
And
even the Egyptians. So I got a picture where, look at this. Look at the Egyptians and the Mayans, yo. Come on, yo. You can't even tell them apart.
It's a very contentious subject, but there are whistleblowers who I described in the book, like Karen Hughes, who had somebody that met with leaders of the financial system, and one of these guys had a very strange elongated skull and very piercing blue eyes.
All right, let's go to
anything like a regular person.
Let's go to the final calls here for you.
I love how they try to whitewash it and real blue eyes. No, that's a tall white then. It's a tall white. No, the people that had elongated skull anywhere on the planet, they're brown, even in Africa. Oh, I've never seen a white person. Did white people in history ever elongate their skull? Did they?
You, Mr. Wilcock, let's go east of...
You know what? Those practice skulls got red hair, but is it because they're gingers, or is it because their hair oxidized from the oxygen after 2,000 years?
the Rockies. Don in Augusta, Georgia. Hey, Don, you're up with us. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Tonight's topic is great, and y'all doing a good job. I can't agree with you more about what you're saying about fear being used as a way of controlling and manipulating people. I think when somebody's under stress or in fear, they can't use their abilities. And I noticed when I quit watching the
Look at his eyes. So this is what I think Flint looked like. I believe Flint looked like this because during childbirth, he had a Flint of mohawks. And this is why Mohawks wear the mohawk. Mohawk comes from a being, a god, an evil god at that had a mohawk of flint sticking out. And it was so sharp during childbirth, he cut the inside of his mom and came out the side of her, and she died from that. They say he had blue eyes, just like this. This is exactly how he would have looked. And he would have had a mohawk of flint sticking out. And they said he had flint all over his body, yo. Yeah, he was an evil god. He was an evil god, and he even tried to make man.
Quit drinking fluoride and some other things. My paranormal abilities just went through the roof.
Absolutely.
I read people's minds and think clear, and I think I've been in fear my whole life, worried about getting in an accidental nuclear war or some kind of event, and just, if I can get this fear off my back, I can use my abilities better.
Well, once you get rid of that fear, then you're no longer providing these negative entities with the food supply that they're using our planet as a farm for. That's really the bottom line, as crazy as it sounds.
They live on fear, don't they?
They actually do.
They feed it, they grow with it, they nurture it, and everything else.
And one of the contentious points is, why would a loving God create a universe this way? And the answer
is because they're farming loosh off of us, yo. Loosh is the scent of fear that comes off of you. They can smell it. They get high off of it. A cat will farm loosh off of a squirrel or a mouse or whatever. It'll be scared. It'll farm the loosh off of it so it gets high off of it. That's what they do. Yeah, they like loosh. It's your fear and your stress that comes off of you. It's an energy. It's an aroma that they get high off of.
is the hero's journey, the struggle between good and evil, is written into the cosmic nature of the universe itself. And I really go into that in my...
So you guys got to understand where we live. This was designed by a good god and an evil god. Yin and yang, left hand and right hand, flint and sapling. One would make it rain, the other would make it thunder. One would make a rose, the other one would put thorns on it. One would make a pretty bee, other one throw a stinger on it. You understand? So everything that happens that's good, there'll be just as much bad.
Second book, Synchronicity Key, go into all the details about Hollywood screenwriting and that every movie is basically the same hero's journey story. And you have to have a villain. And so the villain is given an incentive to do evil because they require it. And they either have the option ultimately of going positive or else they essentially dissolve back into the pure energy of the universe. So you can't stay evil, but you can choose that path and you can get power from black magic, and it really works.
Back to the Cabal
Wizards,
for a moment. Would you say the Cabal is the evil part of the good evil?
I would say they're an aspect of it. The Cabal ultimately is controlled by negative extraterrestrials. The main group that's controlling the negative extraterrestrials would be the Draco reptilians. They also have other groups that they are dominating that are extraterrestrial as well. But then the Draco actually have a god.
Yo, you know what I just noticed? Sky domes on the dollar bill. Iroquois sky domes. That's what it looks like. Going around the outside. You see it? You guys see the sky domes? The Iroquois sky domes? That's what I see.
They worship an AI, and the AI is ultimately controlling the Draco. And what we find out from many other extraterrestrial races is that the AI is ultimately what we would think of as Satan or Lucifer, and it's this force that will use biological life forms to do its biddings. Those forms end up getting injected with nanites that basically take over their body. You get super lifespan, you get super healing capabilities, you get super expansion of your mind, but you've lost your soul. And ultimately what the AI does is it destroys all biological life. And it seems that whatever this thing is, it exists in the spiritual form, but it cannot take flesh, because if it does, it's subject to judgment. And I know that sounds very Christian, but this is how it's been explained to me by some very high-level whistleblowers who identify as Christian, but they also work for the government. So there you have it.
All right. And you claim that we have extraterrestrial DNA in our system.
Absolutely. That's a widely held notion in the insider community, and there's also poignant data in the real world that validates that. We found very bizarre skeletons with elongated skulls all over the planet, everywhere from South Africa in the Boskop area to Omsk, Siberia. You see these people in the Egyptian pharaohs, in the sculptures and paintings and carvings of them. You see them in Peru. There's a variety of skulls that have been found in Peru and Bolivia and Brazil and these other places that have those characteristics. When I was at Contact in the Desert, we had Brian Forster there, and he's now saying that those skulls are being medically analyzed and they don't have the same number of fissures in the skull that ours do, and they have odd characteristics. Well, guess what? Those people were here. Most of the time when you find these skeletons, they're given honorable burials, clearly showing that they were people of public prominence. And it's very likely that they did interbreed with us. And therefore, to hear it from the insiders, we are a very hybridized human race. There's a lot of different DNA that has been mixed together to make us who we are today. And that's part of why we are so spring-loaded for ascension, is a lot of this DNA is like hot-wired for ascension. We're actually much more capable of ascending than most other races would be in terms of how fast and how powerful we will be once it happens.
Frustrated with security tools that overload you with alerts? Aikido makes it simple. A single platform that shows you what matters and how to.
David, why was the God of the Bible so evil? And let me
For thousands of years, the legend of Atlantis has whispered through history, a lost civilization swallowed by the sea, its secrets buried beneath waves and time.
How's that?
Philosophers, explorers, and treasure hunters have chased shadows of this myth, following threads that lead to dead ends and dead seas. But what if the truth wasn't hidden in the ocean's depths at all? What if the key to Atlantis lay waiting in an entirely unexpected place, etched into the ancient texts of the Aztec Empire? Imagine holding a weathered manuscript, its pages filled with symbols that don't just tell the story of Mesoamerican gods and kings, but point unmistakably to a catastrophe far older, far stranger than anyone ever suspected. Plato first wrote of Atlantis around 360 years before the Common Era, describing a mighty island nation that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of fire and quakes. Scholars have scoured the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, even Antarctica for traces of this fabled land. Yet few thought to look in the records of the Aztecs, a civilization oceans and centuries apart from ancient Greece. But hidden within their codices, their sacred stories, are echoes of a disaster so vast it reshaped the world, flood myths that mirror Plato's account. Descriptions of cities built in rings, just like Atlantis, even the name of a mysterious homeland lost to the sea. The connections are too precise to dismiss as coincidence. This isn't just another wild theory. It's a trail of evidence carved in stone and ink waiting to be deciphered. What if the Aztecs weren't just preserving their own history, but fragments of a global memory, a cataclysm so profound it echoed across continents? Today, we're pulling those fragments together, following a path that leads from the pyramids of Tenochtitlan to the very heart of Atlantis itself. The answers may rewrite everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. So lean in, because what you're about to discover isn't just history, it's a revelation. Plato's account of Atlantis comes from two of his most enigmatic dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, written nearly 2,400 years ago. He describes a powerful island empire, larger than Asia and Libya combined, thriving beyond the Pillars of Hercules. This wasn't just any civilization. Atlantis was a marvel of engineering with concentric rings of land and water, grand temples sheathed in precious metals, and a society so advanced it commanded the respect of the known world. But its greatest strength became its downfall. The Atlanteans grew arrogant, their hearts corrupted by power, and in a single catastrophic night, the gods punished them. Earthquakes shattered the land, tsunamis swallowed the cities, and the entire island vanished beneath the ocean, lost to time. What makes Plato's story so gripping isn't just the spectacle of its destruction, it's the eerie specificity. He didn't present Atlantis as a vague legend, but as a historical account passed down from Egyptian priests to the Athenian statesman Solon. The details are meticulous, the dimensions of the city's rings, the rituals of its people.
Did you hear that? The Romans learned about Atlantis from the Egyptians. That proves everything that I've been saying to you guys, that Egypt was an Atlantean colony.
Even the exact type of stone used in its construction. For centuries, scholars have debated whether Plato was recording truth or crafting allegory, a warning about hubris disguised as history. Yet the persistence of Atlantis in our collective imagination suggests something deeper. Flood myths exist in nearly every ancient culture, from Mesopotamia to the Andes. Could Plato's tale be one thread in a global tapestry?
My bad, yo.
The fascination.
I forgot. My bad, yo.
Doesn't stop with historians. Explorers from the age of Columbus to modern sonar-equipped researchers have scoured the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, even the Caribbean, searching for sunken ruins that match Plato's descriptions. Some theories place Atlantis near the Azores, others in the Sahara, or even Antarctica. But what if the real clue lies not in geography, but in the uncanny parallels found in other cultures? The Aztecs, separated from Greece by an ocean and millennia, spoke of their own lost homeland, Aztlan, a paradise destroyed by water. Their codices describe great floods, cities built in circular patterns, and ancestors fleeing a cataclysm. The similarities are too striking to ignore. Plato's Atlantis endures because it taps into something primal, the fear of impermanence, the allure of forgotten wisdom. Every generation reinvents the myth, projecting its own anxieties and hopes onto that sunken kingdom. Yet the deeper we dig, the more we realize Atlantis isn't just a place. It's a mirror. Whether it was real or not, the story forces us to
So
ask.
what do I think about the Finnish Sami tribes? I think that Native American in them from the Vikings.
Uncomfortable questions. How do civilizations rise and
That's
fall?
why it pops up as Siberian.
What happens when power goes unchecked, and if a society as advanced as Atlantis could vanish without a trace, what does that mean for us? The Aztec Empire wasn't just a civilization, it was a living mosaic of myth, science, and ambition, rising from the marshes of Lake Texcoco to dominate Mesoamerica by the 15th century. At its height, their capital, Tenochtitlan, dazzled with towering pyramids, floating gardens, and canals so vast that Spanish conquerors compared it to Venice. But beneath the grandeur lay a profound obsession with origins and destiny. The Aztecs believed they were the chosen people of Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, destined to wander until an eagle perched on a cactus signaled their promised land.
That's the Mexican flag.
Yet their sacred texts whispered of an even older homeland, a place called Aztlan, the land of whiteness or land of herons.
Land of herons? Atlantis. Yo. Atlantis. Does that mean I'm Atlantean if I'm Heron Clan? Place of herons? Come on.
To time and flood. Their stories of Aztlan are eerily specific. According to the Boccherini Codex, the Aztecs emerged from a mythical island in a lake, guided by priests who carried the effigy of their god. The narrative describes a migration lasting generations, fleeing some great catastrophe. Later codices, like the Orban manuscript, depict Aztlan as a circular city surrounded by water, rings of land, and canals mirroring Plato's description of Atlantis. Even the name echoes. Aztlan and Atlantis share more than phonetic resemblance. In Nahuatl, atl means water, a root woven into words for warfare Yayotl and sacred springs Aitzcatl. Could this linguistic thread tie two legends together across oceans? The Aztecs preserved their history through codices folded bark paper books painted with vivid glyphs and symbols. These weren't mere records, they were living maps of cosmic order, blending myth, astronomy, and historical events. Spanish priests like Bernardino de Sahagun worked with Aztec scribes to transcribe these stories, inadvertently saving fragments of a nearly erased worldview. One startling detail emerges repeatedly, the concept of sun epochs or world ages, each destroyed by a different calamity, jaguars, hurricanes, fire, and finally a great flood.
Jaguars makes me think Lyrans, cat people. So, allegedly, this is what is in your DNA. Clay people, giants, monkey people, bird people, fish people, plant people, tree people, and the god's DNA with stardust, their blood and stardust. If you're Ungoy, you got extra stardust more than everybody else, though. That's in our teachings.
The fourth age, Etonatia, ended when the gods drowned the world, sparing only a man and woman who rebuilt humanity. Sound familiar? It's a near parallel to flood myths from Mesopotamia to Greece and to Atlantis' fate. What makes the Aztec accounts uniquely compelling is their blend of symbolic and literal detail. The Codex Chimalpopoca describes the floodwaters rising over mountains, lasting 52 years, a number sacred to their calendar cycle. Other texts speak of ancestors.
And how long did they say? How long did they say the biblical flood lasted? 371 days. 151 days.
To walk through the sea, guided by supernatural forces.
Hold on. Let's see how much. How long did the Hindu flood last? One year. 12 years. 7 days, 40 days.
These begarbled memories of migration from a drowned land. Even their architecture hints at deeper knowledge. The Templo Mayor's dual shrines to Tlaloc, the rain god, and Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, may symbolize the duality of creation and destruction, a theme central to Atlantis' rise and fall. Scholars often dismiss these connections as coincidence, arguing that flood myths are universal human responses to natural disasters, but the Aztec narratives stand apart in their precision. Unlike the biblical flood or Deucalion's Ark, their stories include architectural details, cities with concentric
Can you guys hear me?
just like Plato's Atlantis. The Florentine Codex even mentions a lost city of the gods, Tolan, where wise rulers possessed forbidden knowledge before their hubris brought ruin. The parallels pile up: advanced societies, divine retribution, and a cataclysm so total it became embedded in cultural DNA. What if the Aztecs weren't just another culture with a flood myth? What if their codices hold corrupted but vital fragments of a prehistorical event, one that reshaped continents and seeded legends across the world? The key lies in how they recorded time. The Aztec calendar wasn't linear. It spiraled in 52-year cycles, each a potential rebirth or apocalypse. Their scribes may have compressed millennia of oral tradition into symbolic shorthand, blurring the line between history and prophecy. When they spoke of Aztlan's fall, they might have been reaching back further than we ever imagined.
Can you guys still hear the video if I pause, if I mute myself?
Warning. The theory linking Atlantis to Aztec mythology isn't just a fringe idea. It's a puzzle built from striking similarities that refuse to fit neatly into coincidence. Start with the most glaring parallel, the lost homeland. Just as Plato described Atlantis sinking beneath the waves, the Aztecs spoke of Aztlan, an island paradise swallowed by water. Both civilizations framed their origins around a catastrophic flood, a cataclysm so immense it became the defining event of their cultural memory. But it's the details that raise eyebrows. The Aztec codices depict Aztlan as a circular city, its design mirroring Plato's precise description of Atlantis' concentric rings of land and water. These aren't vague resemblances, they're architectural blueprints separated by an ocean and millennia. Dig deeper and the connections multiply. The Aztec flood myth, recorded in the Codex Chimalpopoca, describes waters rising so high they submerged mountains, a detail hauntingly close to Plato's account of tsunamis engulfing Atlantis. Even the aftermath aligns, survivors fleeing to higher ground, civilizations rebuilt from scraps of forgotten knowledge. The Aztecs believed their ancestors emerged from Chicamostoc, the place of the 7 caves, a symbolic refuge after the deluge. Could this be their version of Atlantis' scattered survivors, carrying fragments of advanced wisdom to a new world? Linguistic clues add another layer. The Nahuatl word atl doesn't just mean water. It's woven into the very name Aztlan, just as Atlantis derives from the Greek Atlantikos, rooted in the Titan Atlas, who held up the celestial spheres. Both names evoke water, power, and a cosmic struggle. Even the Aztec god Tlaloc, ruler of storms and floods, bears an uncanny resemblance to Poseidon, Atlantis' patron deity. Coincidence, maybe, but when you stack these parallels, flood myths, circular cities, linguistic echoes, and godly archetypes, the case for a shared memory starts to feel less like speculation and more like a trail of breadcrumbs. Skeptics argue that flood myths are universal, a product of humanity's collective trauma from ancient sea level rises, yet the Aztec accounts stand apart. Their codices don't just mention a flood, they chronicle specific technologies and social structures reminiscent of Atlantis. The Florentine Codex describes Tolan, a city of towering pyramids and wise rulers who possessed forbidden knowledge until their pride triggered divine punishment. Sound familiar? It's a near-perfect echo of Atlantis' fate. Even the Aztec calendar, with its cyclical view of time, suggests they expected history to repeat, carrying warnings from one epoch to the next. What if the Aztecs weren't just preserving their own history, but a far older narrative one that spanned continents? The trouble is, we're piecing together fragments from a civilization whose records were burned by Spanish conquistadors. What survived was filtered through colonial interpreters, their biases muddying the waters, but the echoes persist. When Aztec priests spoke of the fourth sun's destruction by flood, they might have been reaching back to a real event, the collapse of a maritime empire whose name and fate resonated across the ages. Atlantis wasn't just a Greek legend, it might have been a global one. The Codex Boccherini unfolds like a sacred map, not just of physical journeys, but of cultural memory burned into bark paper. Created decades before the Spanish conquest, this pictographic manuscript traces the Aztec exodus from Aztlan, their mythical homeland, to the Valley of Mexico. But look closer, and the scenes stir unsettling questions. One panel shows a temple erupting in flames as figures flee into swirling waters, their faces contorted in terror. Another depicts a lone priest clutching a sacred bundle, leading survivors through a landscape fractured by jagged lines symbolizing earthquakes or perhaps the collapse of an entire world. These aren't just stylized symbols, they're visceral echoes of catastrophe, mirroring Plato's account of Atlantis's fiery submersion. What sets the Boccherini apart from other codices is its raw, unfinished state. Unlike later manuscripts polished under colonial influence, this one feels urgent, almost desperate to preserve a truth too fragile to survive. The migration spans multiple generations, with each stop marked by a broken tree or inverted mountain, signs of environmental upheaval. Most striking is the repeated glyph for Atal, water, which coils around settlements like a serpent, swallowing entire communities. Scholars often interpret this as symbolic trials, but what if the Aztecs were encoding a real disaster? The Codex mentions Aztlan Tenochtitlan, framing their journey as both an escape and a search for redemption, much like Atlantean survivors scattering after their empire's fall. Then there's the timeline. The Boccherini's events align eerily with proposed dates for Atlantis's demise around 9,000 years before Plato's era. While mainstream archaeology dismisses this as fantasy, the Codex's cyclical calendar hints at deeper layers. Every 52 years, the Aztecs feared a repetition of the flood that birthed their wanderings. This wasn't mere superstition, it was a cultural scar. The Annals of Tlatelolco, a related text, describes ancestors walking through the sea with the gods, a phrase that could be poetic, or a garbled memory of crossing a drowned continent. Architectural parallels deepen the mystery. One panel shows Aztlan as a circular city bisected by canals, its central pyramid crowned with a heron, the same bird Plato associated with Poseidon's temple in Atlantis. Even the departure point is significant. The Aztecs paint themselves leaving from an island in a vast lake, just as Atlanteans supposedly ruled from an island encircled by concentric moats. These details defy easy dismissal as artistic convention. They suggest a shared blueprint
Why does it look
across
like the
time and
Vatican?
space, as if both cultures were
Why does that look like the Vatican?
sketching fragments of the same lost world. But the Boccherini's greatest clue might be its silence. Unlike later
just like the
codices,
Vatican.
it never depicts Aztlan's physical destruction, only its abandonment. The homeland remains suspended in the manuscript's opening pages, pristine yet unreachable, like a dream fading at dawn. This absence speaks volumes. If Aztlan was Atlantis, its fate wasn't just recorded, it was ritualized. The Aztecs reenacted their exodus annually, priests carrying effigies of Huitzilopochtli through mock floods, as if trying to exorcise the trauma of a collapse they couldn't fully remember. The Codex isn't just a history. It's a plea, a message in a bottle tossed across millennia, waiting for someone to piece together the truth beneath the symbols.
Ooh, I want to hear this.
There's a clay tablet sitting in a museum archive right now that most academics refuse to discuss in public, not because it is damaged, not because it is too fragmentary to translate, but because what it describes, when read without the filter of modern assumptions, does not fit the story we have been told about where human beings came from. This tablet, part of a collection of Sumerian texts that predate the Bible by thousands of years, contains a passage referring to two distinct categories of human beings, two separate bloodlines, two different origins. And according to the text, only one of those bloodlines was created by the gods themselves. The other one came from somewhere else entirely. If you have been paying attention to the ancient astronaut research community over the last 2 decades, you have heard pieces of this story before. Zechariah Sitchin pointed to it. Lawrence Gardner traced its echoes through royal genealogies. Researchers like Michael Tellinger and Anton Parks spent years digging through the cuneiform records trying to reconstruct what the original Sumerian scribes were actually saying before their words were absorbed into later religious traditions that could not afford to let the original meaning survive. Most mainstream presentations focus on the Anunnaki as a unified group with a single agenda. What almost nobody talks about is the internal division within their own creation project, the disagreement that produced two separate human templates, and the evidence buried in the tablet record that those two templates are still walking around today with fundamentally different biological signatures. Before we go further, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel covers material that major platforms and academic gatekeepers would rather keep in the footnotes. Every time you subscribe and share, you help this research reach people who are ready to hear it. If you want early access to the deep dives, source breakdowns, and uncensored versions of these investigations, the link to the membership community is in the description below. What we are about to cover gets suppressed and quietly buried. Your support is the only thing keeping it alive. Now let's go back to the beginning. Not the beginning in Genesis. The beginning before Genesis. The one the Sumerians recorded in a language that had no reason to invent metaphors for things it was describing as literal historical events. The civilization that emerged in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley around 5,500 years ago did not appear gradually the way all our models of cultural evolution predict. It exploded. Fully formed writing systems, complex legal codes, astronomical calendars precise enough to track planetary cycles across centuries, agricultural techniques that assume generations of prior knowledge that no archaeological record accounts for, mathematics sophisticated enough to calculate compound interest and geometric land surveys, and embedded in their texts a detailed account of beings they called the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, not gods in the abstract theological sense, beings, physical entities who descended from somewhere else and whose intervention.
What kind of language is that? That looks, for some reason, that looked to me, and maybe it's just me, but that looks Iroquoian as fuck. Maybe that's just me. It looks Iroquoian as fuck, yo. It's got an Iroquois look to it, yo. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding, y'all. It's got an Iroquois look to it, yo. It does. It just does, yo. It just does to me.
In early human development was recorded not as mythology, but as administrative history. The Sumerian king list, one of the oldest historical documents on the planet, begins with a statement never satisfactorily explained by mainstream scholarship. It says that kingship descended from heaven, that before the Great Flood, specific named rulers governed specific named cities for impossibly long reigns, tens of thousands of years in some cases. Then the flood came, then kingship descended from heaven again, and the post-flood rulers began showing dramatically reduced lifespans. Something changed, something biological, and the Sumerian scribes noticed and recorded it. The text we are focusing on today is not one of the famous creation epics. It is not the Enuma Elish, though that text is relevant context. It is not the Epic of Gilgamesh. though Gilgamesh himself is central to understanding what the two bloodlines meant in practical terms. The tablet in question is from a category Sumerian scribes called incantation texts, ritual medical documents inscribed by specialist priest-physicians known as the Ashapu. These were not poets writing mythology. They were practitioners working from technical knowledge about the human body and the invisible forces that could alter human biology. And buried inside one of these incantation texts is a passage translated in at least 3 significantly different ways by 3 different academic scholars, all of whom produced translations that, while technically defensible, soften the most explosive implications.
So those Sumerian beings resembled your liking, you looked like them? No, I didn't say that. Why are you guys always trying to put words in my mouth, y'all? I never said that at all. I said those guys got blue eye. The Sumerians, listen, actually, the Sumerians were brown people. We're talking about the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are pale-skinned, hairy, bearded, blue-eyed people.
Of the original cuneiform. The passage describes the blood of 2 kinds of human being. The Sumerian term used is different in each case.
Like I told you, the serpent copper-blooded, which is us, and then the monkey iron-blooded, which is them.
In the first instance, the text uses a compound term combining the word for clay or earth with the word for blood or life fluid. In the second, the compound combines the word for heaven or above with the same root, earth blood and heaven blood. The mundane translation most academic papers prefer renders this as common human vitality versus divine spark, a poetic dualism, metaphor.
Your divine spark is your fire, your Gwajiat, that's your family, and a spark is the children.
Or symbolism. But here is where the story gets complicated in ways that cannot be explained by poetic convention.
Hold on, bruh, ain't no Anunnaki blue-eyed. The blue-eyed are lab creations. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Hold on. How did the Anunnaki look? Here. Let's see. Do the Anunnakis? Okay. Here we go. Within the context of ancient astronaut theories and Sumerian mythology interpretations, the Anunnaki are frequently described as tall. Hold on. As tall, fair-skinned, and blue-eyed. Yeah, dude. So wherever you guys get your fucking information from, it's wrong. You know, you know why they were here, right? Look. Oh, yo, that's so funny, yo. You know why they were here, right? You know why they were here, right? To get gold. Hey! Shut up. They were here to get gold, yo. For their planet. Because they kept getting burned by it, yo. Look. That's what they look like. They were getting burned on their planet, yo. They needed to put gold in the atmosphere for their planet on Nibiru. It's got 2 suns. Or whatever. So they needed to get gold for their fucking planet. To keep themselves from burning. They're fucking pale. Skinned and blue-eyed. Stop trying to blackwash everything, y'all. Listen, you don't even want to be black. So why are you trying to make everybody else be black? You don't even want to be black.
The incantation in which this passage appears is a medical procedure.
This
A
is
set of instructions for a
whitewashing?
healer dealing with a patient whose blood is not responding to treatment the way it should. The diagnosis section states,
It's whitewash. Dude, you guys are something else, bro. Like, your people live in dung huts and smear poop on straw huts, bro. They got, like, the most mutations. Look up the three-toed tribe in Africa, bro. You guys are, like, leading in incest on the planet. Like, bro, they gotta marry a cousin or a sister in that tribe. Sorry, Dogoji. But, yeah, yo. It's like, you guys are not those people that you think you are. I'm sorry. Not even close. The veil is being lifted, yo. See right through that shit. The veil has lifted so much, I stopped listening to rap music altogether. Because all the rappers wish they were me. They're all pretendians. Lil Wayne, Waka Flocka, Chris Brown, Kevin Gates, Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, Coolio, DDG, Sexy Red, Asian the Doll, fucking Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Waka Flocka, Chris Brown, ASAP, Rocky, Wiz Khalifa. They're all pretendians. That's why I stopped listening to rap music. Because it's not hard no more. It don't hit. It doesn't hit. It's because it's completely fraudulent. Because I'll be listening to it. It's like, man, this motherfucker wishes he was me. It doesn't hit no more. It doesn't hit no more because all of y'all are pretendians.
It's in language that is not remotely poetic that the healer must first determine which type of blood the patient carries. Because the treatments are different. The ritual components
Michael
are different.
Jackson thought he
The protective herbs and mineral preparations are different. And the expected outcomes are explicitly stated to differ based on which blood type the patient has. This is not a metaphor.
Hold on.
Nobody writes.
Michael Jackson said he was native. Wait, what? Was he? Like, I'm not saying that you guys can't have a drop, but, like, don't fucking try to blackwash our history and say that's what the original native looked like. We all know what the original natives look like. Don't try to fucking switch it up and say they all had fucking afros and, like, let people have their culture without you guys trying to fucking be weirdos, yo. It's so strange, yo. Your music bears no rhythm. Bears? You mean has? Oh my god. Your music bears no rhythm. You mean has, bro. But it does have rhythm. Why do your women do the gorilla mating dance? You know what the gorilla mating dance is? Before gorillas, and they do it to let the stink out. Yeah, yo, to let the man, yeah. To let the man know it's that time. To let the stink out. They shake their ass, yo, in the air. Yeah, yo. That's the gorilla mating dance. Look it up. Look up gorilla mating dance. Yo, look it up. Just look it up.
It's a medical procedure around a metaphor. You do not instruct a physician to perform different interventions on different patients based on a symbolic distinction. The Sumerians were precise people. They built cities with drainage systems. They calculated the retrograde motion of Jupiter. When they wrote a medical text, they meant it as a medical text. And this medical text says that there are two biological categories of human being, defined by something in their blood, and that these two categories require different treatment protocols.
Hey!
Now let us bring in the creation mythology, because this is where the two data streams converge in a way that should make every serious researcher reread the primary sources. The primary Sumerian creation narrative, preserved most fully in the Atrahasis epic, along with parallel passages in
Guys,
the
we got a
Enuma
$50
Elish.
goal. By the way, if you guys are interested in helping us reach the goal, we're gonna do a $50 goal tonight. The Cash App is right up here at the top. Let me make that bigger for you guys. Hold on. There we go. Right there. All right, guys. So if you guys are interested in helping out.
And several standalone creation hymns tells a story that differs dramatically from later Mesopotamian and Abrahamic retellings. In the Sumerian original, human beings were not created from nothing. They were not created as a purely spiritual act of divine will. They were engineered. The Anunnaki, led by Enki, the lord of the deep waters and master of the divine technical formulas, combined something of the gods with something of the earth to create a being capable of performing labor. The Sumerian word for this process is related to mixing or combining. It is the same root used in text.
So, listen, maybe on that side of the world, they did go over there and they needed to make a worker, right? Maybe that's where black people come from. They needed to make a worker, and that's where slavery started, was the Middle East, where these beings are saying it. It's where slavery started. You know who was first getting enslaved? The black people were getting enslaved by them, by the Middle Easterners. That's where it fucking started. It goes back there. They may be the slaves in the Bible too, but they've been in slavery that fucking long, yo. That's probably why, they're all fucked up,
Describing the preparation of medicinal compounds and metal alloys.
Of being slaves, yo.
This was a technical operation. What was mixed? The texts say the blood.
That's why they act like they got nothing to lose. They'll throw away their life over McDonald's or someone looking at you wrong, yo.
Of a god was combined with clay. The god whose blood was used is identified in some versions as king.
You call me a name, I'll probably just be like, all right, buddy. I've thrown my life away and given years of my life to the system. I'm not doing that no more. I don't got nothing left to prove to nobody.
A divine being killed or sacrificed in the events preceding the creation. King's blood mixed with clay produced the first Lulu, the first human worker. And that first human was not fully divine and not fully earthly.
Lulu, the first, what? It sounds like Lucy. Lulu. Lucy, this is Lulu. Lucy was probably Lulu's daughter. Lucy, okay. Hey.
With something in between. A hybrid, an engineered composite. But here is what the popular presentations
he's got waves. He's got waves. Is this the worker? That's the worker, yo. I think he's got waves right there, yo.
Leave out. The Atrahasis epic does not describe a single creation event. It describes multiple creation attempts, failed experiments.
This is what I was going to say. So maybe over there, they did make them to be a worker, to mine gold. That's why they got an attraction to gold. Over here, hold on. Over here, we were made to be stewards of the land. Farmers. That's why all the knowledge from the plants comes from our people. If you've ever been sick and went to the hospital and they gave you a pill to make you feel better, that knowledge came from my people. Just so you know.
Humans that were too powerful, too weak, too fertile, or not fertile enough. Beings with defects in organs that did not function in standard ways.
And these are Native American teachings. So each world, you know how I said they made different people? Some people are better. Some people can't make people. They made people that couldn't make people. They made people that didn't have good sight and good hearing like how we do. Like our people, we got powers that other people don't have. They don't teach you this stuff, but once you realize who we are and our place in creation, when you hear our story, you'll realize that, oh shit, they're hiding that from us. They don't want you to know that you're like an X-Men, that the sun charges you up. You're supposed to be giving thanks to the three sisters and an offering. You're supposed to talk to the plants. You're supposed to talk to the trees. You're supposed to be one with nature, and you're so disconnected from that. We've been colonized. At least we can decolonize. You can't deconquer yourself. So we haven't been conquered, and it won't happen.
After multiple rounds of biological iteration, a stable model was produced, the Lulu Amalu, the mixed worker of the gods. That stable model is the ancestor of most of the current human population, the earth blood lineage, a deliberate dilution, because of being too close to the divine template was too difficult to control. Here is where a second thread enters the narrative. Enki, in the Sumerian texts, is not a simple character. He is the craftsman god, the lord of wisdom and deep knowledge, but he is also consistently portrayed as operating outside the consensus of the divine assembly. He hides things. He leaks classified information to humans he has selected. He disobeys directives from his brother Enlil, who represents law, order, and rigid governance. And in several texts, Enki is described as having produced, alone or with collaborators, a secondary human creation, a lineage not produced by the standard mixing protocol, a lineage that received a higher proportion of divine genetic material, more heaven in the blood, less earth. The texts describing this secondary lineage are not as well preserved as the main creation epics. They appear in fragments and side passages and
Is that why they've enslaved us and we're in prisoner of war camps, the Indian reservation? Is that why we got blood quantum cards? Is that why our people go missing and we don't know where they end up? Is that why? Is because we got something in our DNA that they want, so they keep us like cattle on an Indian reservation, a farm? Is that why? Because of who we are? Oh yeah, there's a full blood, quarter blood. You don't want the half breeds. You don't want a quarter blood. You want the full blood. As soon as the Mayans and Aztecs stopped sacrificing people, stuff went bad for us. And you're supposed to give blood offerings to the sun. It was thirsty for our blood. That was one of the rules. Since natives started tapping in to their ceremonies that they're supposed to be doing, shit has gotten better. Just so you know. Not saying that we're sacrificing people anymore, but we're tapping into the old ways, yo. It's spiritual warfare. They've colonized us in our mindsets, and they've enslaved us. They didn't enslave us the way they enslaved the Africans. They couldn't do that to us. That's why they had to go get them. Is because we wouldn't work. Is because we're not submissive by nature. You can't make me be your pet. I just won't do that. It's just not in me to be like that, submissive. You know, so that's why they had to go get them. That's why I'm saying they got the worship gene in them. They might have been the slaves in the Bible. They were already in captivity when they didn't go catch them. Their own people sold them out. And if these people in America that want to be us, if they actually knew their roots, they could be kings and princes over in Africa. And maybe they fucking went and their own people went and sold them into slavery. But they don't know who they are. They don't want to find that out. They don't want to find out anything. Hey, yo, everybody spam W's in the chat for, hold on, I didn't get your name. For Patricia, hey, with the $15 donation, we got $35 more to go. Hell yeah, yo, I appreciate you. Thank you. Everybody spam W's for Patricia. Let's try to reach our goal, guys. We got 35 more to go if we can reach it. And we got another 15 minutes left of this video.
Theological sections of texts, primarily about something else. But they are consistent enough across multiple independent sources that they cannot be dismissed as scribal invention. These passages describe a specific class of human being that the gods treated differently, longer lived, more perceptive, capable of interacting with the divine technical formulas in ways ordinary humans could not. And their blood, the texts say repeatedly, was not the same as the blood of the mixed worker. The Gilgamesh material is where this...
That's what I'm saying, yo. We got that good blood, yo. The mixed worker. You got the mixed worker blood, yo. You don't got copper serpent blood, dragon blood. You don't got copper serpent dragon blood like us. Come on.
Distinction
You got that iron monkey blood.
Becomes impossible to ignore. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, is described throughout his epic and in separate king list references as being 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. This is a bizarre biological ratio that makes no sense in any allegorical framework and makes complete literal sense if you accept that the texts are describing genetic dilution across generations. If the primary Anunnaki progenitor of his line...
generations. Oh, okay. Yo, that's how they treat our blood. No other group of people do they treat their blood. They treat our blood like it's giant Nephilim blood. Oh, quarter blood, half-breed. Oh, you're going to water it down if you mix. You can't mix. You're going to water it down. You're going to dilute it. Only our blood, they treat our blood like that.
Was fully divine, and if subsequent generations each added human mixture into the bloodline, a 3-generation...
Like I said, you guys are human. You guys are human beings. Sea monsters. Cro-Magnon, 4th generation. Seafaring race. We are mankind. Us, the Mexicans, South Americans, Asians, Hindus, Indians, Egyptians, Middle Easterners, Polynesians, Cambodians, Indonesians, Aboriginals, Hawaiians, Samoans.
Dilution would produce exactly the 2/3 ratio the text specifies. Gilgamesh's extraordinary strength and endurance are presented not as miraculous divine favor, but as a consequence of his biological composition. He carries more of the original, undiluted, divine template.
Hey!
He is also mortal. And the entire Gilgamesh epic is the story of a being who carries enough divine blood to understand what immortality is, but not enough to achieve it. He watches his companion Enkidu die. He goes to the ends of the earth looking for the plant of immortality. He finds it. He loses it to a serpent. And he returns to Uruk and realizes that his city walls are his only legacy. Despite everything that his heaven blood gave him, the clay in his composition guarantees his death. This is a precise description of a hybrid being grappling with a biological limitation that was engineered into him. Now let us connect this to the medical text. The incantation tablet's 2 blood categories map directly onto the cosmological distinction between the primary mixed creation and the secondary high-proportion divine creation. The earth blood patient requires certain treatments. The heaven blood patient requires different treatments. And the text notes that heaven blood individuals show unusual responses to standard medicinal preparations. That what heals an earth blood person may not heal a heaven blood person. And in some cases, what is neutral for one is harmful for the other. This is a pharmacogenomic observation. It describes what we would today call differential drug response based on genetic variation. The idea that certain populations metabolize compounds differently, respond to treatments differently, show different baseline physiologies is one of the most active areas of current biomedical research. And the Sumerians, 5,000 years ago, recorded this principle in a medical incantation text because their understanding of human biology included the knowledge that not all humans were made the same way. The modern blood type system is the obvious touch point here. And we need to address it carefully because this is where a lot of alternative history researchers make claims that go beyond what the evidence actually supports. The ABO blood group system divides human blood into 4 primary types based on the presence or absence of specific antigens on the surface of red blood cells. What is genuinely mysterious about blood type distribution in modern human populations is not the existence of different types, but the distribution patterns. Type O is the oldest according to genetic chronology. It appears to be the ancestral human type. Types A and B appear later, with different geographic distributions that suggest different points of origin. And then there is the RH factor, the positive or negative designation that most people know from their blood type card, but rarely think about in depth. The Rh factor is named after the rhesus monkey because it was first identified through comparison with rhesus monkey blood. Approximately 15% of...
Told you that you guys are iron monkey-blooded people. If you're native or Mexican, you're dragon or serpent copper-blooded people.
The human population is Rh negative, meaning they lack the Rh antigen.
My bad. I said that you guys are monkey iron-blooded people, and Mexicans and natives are copper, serpent, or dragon-blooded people.
On their red blood cells. The other 85% are Rh positive. The Rh negative population shows a clustering pattern in geographic and genetic ancestry that is statistically anomalous. The highest concentrations appear in the Basque region of Spain and France, in certain isolated populations of the British Isles, and in parts of the Middle East and North Africa. The Basque people have the highest concentration of Rh-negative blood of any population on Earth, and they also carry a language, Euskara, that is a complete genetic isolate. It has no known relatives. It did not descend from Indo-European, Semitic, or any other reconstructible ancestral tongue. The Basques appear in the European linguistic record fully formed, speaking a language unlike anything around them, carrying blood unlike anything around them. If you were designing a controlled study to identify the modern descendants of a genetically isolated founding population with unusual ancestry, you would look for exactly these markers: anomalous blood type frequency combined with linguistic isolation combined with geographic clustering. Rh-negative blood also creates a specific medical phenomenon that has no satisfying evolutionary explanation. When an Rh-negative woman carries an Rh-positive fetus, her immune system recognizes the Rh-positive factor as foreign and mounts an immune response against it. From an evolutionary perspective, a trait that causes a mother's immune system to attack her own offspring should have been eliminated from the gene pool within a few generations. The fact that 15% of the global population carries this trait suggests either a very recent origin, which genetics does not support, or a protected lineage history that prevented normal evolutionary culling. A founding population isolated enough to maintain the trait across thousands of generations despite its reproductive disadvantage.
Yeah, so
the ancient
yeah, I heard that if you're Rh negative, you can't have kids with someone that's Rh positive or whatever. Have you guys heard that before?
Astronaut interpretation of this data is straightforward. The Rh negative population represents the modern descendants of the heaven blood lineage described in the Sumerian texts. The lineage created not by the standard mixing protocol, but by the secondary Enki faction project that preserved a higher proportion of the original Anunnaki genetic template. The Rh positive majority represents the descendants of the standard mixed creation, earth blood. Clay and divine substance combined in the proportion designed to produce a functional but controllable worker class. The Rh...
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like the new people, the people that are 6,000 years old, are trying to create a story and be like, yeah, we got heaven blood. But really it's like lab rat blood.
Negative minority carries more of the original undiluted template. And that template, being non-terrestrial in origin, is recognized as foreign by Rh-positive immune systems. The Rh-positive immune system treats the Rh-negative antigen profile as alien, because according to this framework, it is alien. It represents a genetic...
Guys, I'm getting hungry. I gotta go get some food or something. We're gonna have to call a break, alright, guys? Fucking starving right now. But I'll catch y'all later, alright? I'm just real hungry right now. So I'm gonna go get some food. I'll catch y'all later, alright? Eskun get. Also, we are $35 away from our $50 goal too. So I'll catch y'all later. Eskun get. Peace.